Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. It's really nice to see you both here tonight. For those of you who are in our audience this evening virtually, my name is Charity Chan. I'm the Performing Arts Manager at the Aga Khan Museum, and it is with great pleasure that I'm able to welcome both Shirlita La Pili and Tamar Ilana, two of the performers from this evening's project, Fantasia, a Flamenco Tablao, which is programmed as part of our annual Duende Festival. Before I continue, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the performance we're about to watch this evening, as well as the site and land from which we are viewing this performance tonight, has been a place for art and culture for millennia. And most recently, it has been stewarded and cared for by the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the First Credit. It is with our great pleasure that we are able to be shared stewards of this land and this space, and that we have the opportunity to present wonderful art and music here at both the museum and elsewhere. So before I continue, I'd like to mention that this program was originally planned to be part of our Duende Festival in person at the museum, but due to the realities of the pandemic, we recorded this project back in October, and so two of the artists have been able to join me here this evening. Shirlita, would you like to tell us a little bit more about the project?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Charity, and to the Aga Khan Museum and everyone who supported us in recording in October. This is our second year of being part of the Duende Festival, in particular through the Tablao. And Tamar will share a little bit more about the tablao in just a moment. Basically, this evening you'll be watching 5 different pieces from our artists tonight, and we're so excited to present them, and in particularly excited because we had this opportunity to perform in all these little corners, these new little places of the Aga Khan due to our circumstances, places that we would typically not perform in. So we're excited to share those little corners and the little magic that happened in those corners with you tonight. Tonight we have the artists that were involved are myself, Shirlita La Pili. We have Nicolas on flamenco guitar, Nicolas Hernandez, ole. We have Derek Gray on percussion, ole. And we have Lia Grainger as our flamenco dancer, ole. And we have Tamar Ilana as our singer and dancer. And I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but I also did singing and dancing and helped put this whole piece together. So thank you so much. And we're gonna pass it off to Tamar.
Thanks so much, Shirlita, and thanks, Charity, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. We're so excited, and the Aga Khan has a special place in our hearts for flamenco, especially since flamenco traces back to a lot of different cultural influences, but one of them is definitely Arabic influence and influence of the Moors that were living in the south of Spain for hundreds of years. And another thing we wanted to mention, Shirley, I'm so glad you mentioned about the different spaces and the different pieces, because flamenco can really be performed anywhere. It can be performed on the street, it can be performed in your living room, and it can be performed in a cave, and that's really the part of the heart of and root of flamenco. You know, it came to the stage later. So to go back to those roots and perform in different areas of the Aga Khan Museum is a beautiful thing, and we can't wait to watch the show tonight. We haven't even seen it yet, so we're excited. And just to mention also that tablao, the root of tablao is really, you know, about community and about coming together in a semi-improvised fashion. And every year we're within the tablao, we're showcasing different local Toronto artists. So thanks for that opportunity, and hope you all enjoy.
Thank you. Okay, let's watch the show.
Ole.
Ole.
Yo solté y la buena tarde le di. Ay, al día y ella dijo aquí que vengo buscando uno huelle y me respondió mamete, ya que Yo sé que ya no volverá. No quiero recordar. Ay, que te fuiste para siempre. Sin ti yo ya no sé vivir. Ay, me he acostumbrado y no quiero perderte. Y no te tengo, primo, y no te tengo. Tiriti tan tan tan, tiriti tan tan tan. Pero ay, tiriti tan tan, tiriti tan tan tan, tiriti tan tan tan. Pero ay, tiriti tan tan tan. Solo en el mundo quedé. No tengo para animar. Solo en el mundo quedé y no tengo más compañía. Será no, tu querer. Si eres bueno y no me engañas, con la lágrima se va la pena grande que se llora, con las lágrimas se va la pena grande, la pena que no se puede llorar, y esa no se va a Mira qué bonita eres, mira qué bonita eres, mira qué bonita eres, que por donde va pisando sale rosas y claveles. Tú me estás enamorando y mira qué bonita eres, mira qué bonita eres, mira qué bonita eres, que por donde va pisando salen rosas y claveles. Tú me estás enamorando.
That was really brilliant. It was spectacular. Oh my goodness. And
Thank you.
when I was watching you perform and record the museum, I loved it. Automatically, I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be so stunning. You were all phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charity. And thanks to the whole team also putting everything together, lights, cameras, everything.
Lights.
Wow. Thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely. And Tamar, thank you. You reminded me we need to make sure to thank our crew who without this would not have made it happen. Lights, first and foremost, just because you mentioned it, is Felicity Marion, our lighting designer.
Bravo, Felicity. Thank you.
We also had Will Smith on audio. Al Nasir Jamal on cinematography and video. And also Tamara Bergstein on lighting assist and audio assist.
Bravo.
And absolutely without a doubt, without fail, Ed Wall, our production manager.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you for everything. Yeah.
So thank you so much, ladies. So I have a couple of questions. I just wanted to chat with you after the show here. For those of you who are still staying with us, we have a very short sort of post-show discussion here with the two artists, Shirlita La Pili and Tamar Ilana, who are joining us this evening for this wonderful viewing. So Shirlita, we just finished watching 5 pieces that made up this Fantasia Tablao performance. Can you tell me a little bit more about the 5 pieces that we just viewed?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have had the first piece as the Guajiras, and I think I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the pieces here. I think with the Guajiras, flamenco is kind of like a universal, it came from, and tomorrow I think we'll speak to this a little bit, or had spoken about this earlier this evening. But flamenco has a lot of different influences of the world, the Arabic, Moors influence, and the influence of, as I mentioned earlier, the ida y vuelta songs coming from Central and South America. And I don't know, I think maybe even perhaps because my roots are from South America, my parents are from Colombia and Ecuador, I kind of wanted to do like homage to that part of that world a little bit. So through the Guajiras, which is what I sang with Nicolas, I wanted to express a little bit of that elements, that world. And because I do flamenco, I'm doing it through flamenco in that way, if that makes any sense. We also listened to Nicolas Hernandez original composition. Well, I wish Nicolas was here to join us to tell us a little bit more about that piece. Actually, Tamar and I had the privilege to be part of a performance that was here over at Lula Lounge with a group called Los Aurora, and we had the privilege to learn how to do the palmas to that piece. I am going to interject here, Tamar. I can't remember. Can you share the rhythm of that piece? Do you remember? Because it's not a flamenco.
He based it off of some raga rhythms from Indian classical music. So I think it was like 25 or something, but you guys are going to have to ask him because we learned it based on the soniquete, on the melody of the rhythm.
Maybe if anyone's watching, they can ask in the comments, and if Nicolas is there, he can tell us a little bit more. But it's like math, major math going on there, like a lot of music. So we also had the Alegrias performance with Lia Grainger as our dancer. And, I think in these times, really important to kind of I know it's been really hard for all of us. We all have COVID fatigue, and Alegrias brings an element of joy because Alegrias means happiness. And it comes, this piece in particular is coming from Cadiz, so which is like on the ocean, a lot of sunshine, joy, everything that we're craving right now because we're just about to enter the deep woods of winter. And then we have fandangos, naturales, and this actually, you know what, I will say this right now, and I've decided I have a little Enrique Morente t-shirt that I'm wearing today. And he is, for anyone who's out there listening, Enrique Morente is a brilliant flamenco singer. I'm not going to get into it. You can do your own Google research, but he's made there's a lot of pivotal people in flamenco that made major shifts that helped, create what flamenco is still morphing into, right? And so Enrique Morente is a big element to that. And when I talked to Tamar about doing this piece, I asked her if she would be interested in doing it with a drone sound. And we decided to do our own droning to each other. So there is actually, as you saw, no flamenco guitar there. And that idea came to me many years ago because I saw a beautiful piece with Enrique Morente, who did a martinete, which is another different of many of these flamenco cante palos. And he did it with a group of singers that were doing a drone to it. So that I would say that comes from that. And Fandangos de Huelva, or Fandangos Naturales, the home place of it is known to be Huelva. And then of course we have the classic fin de fiesta, which is our bulerias, and something where an opportunity for everyone to come together and show a little bit of a little bit of themselves in their own unique way of how you come out and do a little dance number for a moment and then exit. And you could see that with Tamar and I bouncing some verses back and forth. It's kind of meant to be buleria, like play, kind of laughter at. And so, yeah, so that's those pieces there.
Cool. And I'll just add that what Shirley's touching upon is each piece is really from a different kind of subgenre of flamenco, and we really tried to cover a broad range of that. So whether there's underlying rhythm or not, like in the fandangos, improvisational aspects, guitar, no guitar, percussion, no percussion, dance, no dance, all the kind of different elements of flamenco, and sort of give you a summary of that. Yeah.
Yes, and also just to touch on the more traditional aspect, and particularly with the fandango, opening up to new in flamenco.
And because people always ask, I just want to add that, like, what people always ask, what are we singing about and what are the words about and stuff. And at least in the one that Shirley and I sang, Fandangos Naturales, like the style that we sang in, is they usually tell like sort of morals of stories and things like that in that style. And the one that I sang, I learned from Rocio Marquez, a great, beautiful singer that you should also look up. And it says that the greatest pains, pain brings you to tears, but that the greatest pains have no tears. So that's what I was singing about. Shirley, you wanted to say?
That version I sang had to do with being alone in the world, having no mother, no father, and if this woman that is there who I can allow to trust, who doesn't fool me. Kind of a little bit tricky to translate, but yeah, along those, don't fool a lady, basically. That's a whole other, Zoom conversation, talking about the cantes, the verses in flamenco, and how there are many stories sometimes clumped together. They're not like, in Western music where it's like one song is all clumped in the same story.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, Shirley, because when people think about tablao very often, they think about community. In this case, and for me, community is also a lot of times multiple stories all clumped together, a little bit like the cantes that you're talking about. And I know that both of you are very active in the flamenco community here in Toronto. For those of you who are watching and you're not familiar, there's a lot of flamenco happening in Toronto, and it's really great. It's very good. And these two ladies happen to be, pillars of that community. Can one of you let me know, or can you guys let me know a little bit more about flamenco in Toronto?
Sure, I'll start this one off. I started dancing flamenco when I was 7 because I saw one of the, greatest masters of flamenco in Toronto, Esmeralda Enrique, do a performance actually at Harbourfront Center, I think. if my memory serves me correctly. And I said, I want to do that. And my mom said, well, go talk to her. And so I did. And the rest is history, so to speak. You know, I've been a dance in her school for many years. I subsequently moved to Spain, studied flamenco full time in Barcelona and Madrid and Seville at the Fundación Cristina Jerén. I came back and I danced here for years at Plaza Flamenco. And then now I sing for Esmeralda's company, and I teach flamenco to the same kids in the same kids class that I took when I was a kid. So, you know, it's cyclical. And actually I met Shirlita here at Esmeralda's studio. We were both students there for many years, and then we both started singing for her company. When I moved home from my year in Seville, Esmeralda said, well, why don't you go into the room next door? Because there's somebody singing there. And it was you with James, remember, playing guitar?
Yeah.
And that was over a decade ago, around a decade ago. And we've been, you know, performing together and putting on shows together in Toronto ever since. And we've toured across the country with a collective that we had, Flamenquitos del Norte. There was 13 of us, right? 13 of us, I think. And we somehow managed to tour from, you know, Montreal to Vancouver and all these stops. Yeah, there's, you know, I think there's 8 or 9 flamenco festivals in Canada, Duende being one of them. So yeah, anyway, that was like back in history, but maybe Shirley, you can touch also a bit more, you know, on actually like more recently, like Shirley and I have been doing Drum Taberna. We did every Sunday for a year and a half, and we would have kept going had it not been for the pandemic. But Shirley also has been, you know, a pillar and like a lot. And why don't you talk about maybe about flamenco Sundays and all these things that you put together?
Absolutely. Well, I'll just touch back. I mean, you just got me thinking about my trajectory. And really what happened was my mom got me into flamenco at a young age. I think it was her secret desire to do it. But I was living in Mississauga, and my mom had a friend that had a modeling school. So I actually did my first flamenco classes with a Colombian woman. There's a lot of Spanish influence where my mom is from, in Manizales, Colombia. Hugely, like, big time Spanish influence. So basically, I learned from a Colombian woman some classical flamenco on a, believe it or not, on a modeling, like, what do you call it? A catwalk. So that was my first introduction, is like trying not to fall off of the catwalk.
That is amazing. I never knew that.
You didn't know that? Oh yeah, that's what happened. And so just moving it along here, eventually.
You know what our next show is going to be. Sorry, but you know what our next show is going to be. Just saying. Nicolas is going to be walking down that cow.
So basically, going from there, the woman that owned the modeling school happened to accidentally, I think she had a meeting at 401 Richmond, and she accidentally got into Esmeralda's basement studio at 401 Richmond. And that's when she called my mom up. She's like, I found a school. And so I started there when I was about 13 or 14 with Esmeralda, and had a love affair and tried to break up with flamenco several times, like many of us artists do. And and eventually, yes, that's correct. Actually, it's very interesting because Tamar and I were in the school and we never met until, you know,
yeah, for like 10 years.
2007 or something like that, right? That's probably when we first, 2008, 2007. But anyhow, moving forward, yeah, flamenco in Toronto. I mean, I think really what it's based off of in terms of what it became, and you know, there's a lot of different projects across the board with flamenco in Toronto. I do want to recognize that there are a lot of different artists doing a lot of different things in flamenco. It's not, you know, only just the tablao stuff that's, you know, occurring. And so there are a lot of different people that are working. There's a contemporary group that's out there, and obviously the different schools that are within the city. Myself and someone by the name of Dennis Duffin, who is a flamenco guitarist. He now lives in Seville. Many years ago, we were invited to do kind of a bit of flamenco at this cafe back in the day called Naco Gallery. And basically, you know, we kind of had the same philosophical idea of, first of all, number one, there was just not enough for us to enjoy or to learn from. There was nowhere, like, we got it from our schools, but we just we wanted the other element, which was bringing the music and dance together fully, you know, and actually like really getting more engrossed in it. So we had to kind of create it, actually. So Dennis really led the way in terms of building a community and involving people that typically wouldn't come out from different schools. Actually, you know, he really reached out to a lot of people, and because there wasn't many other singers, Tamar was away in Spain at the time learning. I did a bulk of the singing, and there was some other members of the community that were also doing the bulk of the singing, but we're learning as we go. And so that's kind of what kind of created that base. And we kind of tried to create a situation where we trusted each other enough to allow ourselves to go in, kind of like skipping rope, you know, like.
I totally was like that.
You know, I really use that as a metaphor for a lot of different parts in flamenco, but I felt like that was definitely an aspect for everyone to kind of be like, oh, I have all these tools inside. Everyone had these tools inside of themselves, but they just didn't know how to execute them with each other, right? So this was an opportunity, with considering the NACO gallery that I mentioned, that an array of different flamenco community members were part of. And then that closed down, and parties occurred till 10 in the morning here for a little bit. And then, you know, life changed, people moved. We ourselves, out of that came a lot of members of this group that we mentioned earlier, Flamenguitos del Norte. So a lot of people that used to come to those night parties and all that really formed together, and we literally band together and made a group. And then again, life happened again. And then opportunities came, which we have long line of connection with Drome and Chemez, from La Palette. That's a whole other thing, because we used to go party there a lot.
And dance on the bar. We used to dance flamenco on top of the bar there.
We did a show of flamenco. Flamenguitos del Norte did a show literally on the bar. They built a part of the
footwork
bar for us to dance on. So
you'll have to believe it.
Just of an element, or just of an aspect of flamenco in Toronto that helped a lot of people kind of gain a little bit of confidence to kind of use the tools that are within themselves and try to exchange them with each other, you know? So that's kind of it. And that goes to, I think that would say, that kind of leads into like the thought of what a tablao is, but you know, I think that's what I'm going to say about that.
And it's actually really interesting, because it's like, this actually leads me well into the next question, which is, I feel like it's a question that pretty much everybody asks nowadays, whenever you have an artist talk or a panel discussion, which is like, well, what's happened because of COVID? How have things changed? And I mean, we're sitting here at home in our houses watching this performance on a TV or a laptop or a cell phone or a tablet. So obviously we all know something has changed, but listening to you both talk about the history of flamenco and the community and how it's evolved and grown and changed. First off, I have to say, if you've already danced on the bar at La Palette, a catwalk is going to be a piece of cake for both of you. That is nothing, because that is like, I don't know, I feel like that has to be like the opening reprisal of like post-COVID flamenco performance, is like that bar in La Palette and a big catwalk out on Queen Street.
That's Chemez are coming back.
He doesn't know it unless he's watching tonight. He probably knows. He knows now.
He just felt it. He just heard it.
20 years of La Palette, yeah.
So I was gonna say, it's like, you know, when we were working on this project, I know so much of it changed constantly and over time. What was it like to do something that was so community-based and so much about community in a time when being together as a community effectively went on pause for, I guess when we filmed this, like, what, 7-8 months by that time?
Mm-hmm. Well, if I may, do you mind if I just do that for a quick moment? Because something that came to mind when you brought that up, which connects to, I think, what I was referring to in terms of us having our tools or resources within ourselves, I think was really particularly relying on our own resources, and depending on those to know how to execute, right? Because there's not too much an opportunity. We're in a pandemic, so there's not really a time to be like, let's go hang out in a studio and practice. There was just not that opportunity. Because of the circumstances, right? So I would say much gratitude to our teachers, for preparing us. And when I say that, I mean teachers literally across the board, what we've all listened to, what we've all obsessed over the years. I would like to even make a mention to Carmen Romero, who was, for myself, a big influence, because at the time that I started getting more and more involved, I was dancing flamenco. And then I was like, well, I want to understand it more. And I love singing. I've sang since I was a kid, right? So Carmen Romero had started a class where she was, a class that involved all those elements together, right? Of me and Dennis and several community members trying to figure out how do we interact our tools within us and how do we interact with others. But Carmen helped make a class with that to help. It was like a tablao class, basically, right? So that kind of helped guide. But all to say, with your question, I think we had to rely on a lot of our own teachings to be able to kind of go with it and just go. And also I'd like to recognize Tamar and myself, we really have worked so many years together in different forms. We've worked with Esmeralda Enrique many years. We've learned through working with her so much. We've learned with working with our own projects together, Flamenguitos del Norte, and so forth, being on different, Drome as well. And I would say, it's a part of it, a little bit of intuition that has to be built within there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you need to have a little bit of that level of improv. And I think it was somewhat we were able to use that within the recording here, because we know each other, we know how to interact with each other.
It sounds like there's also improv and trust. Sorry, Tamar, yes?
Absolutely.
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Please.
Yeah, I'm just going to add on and say, actually, Shirley's saying a little bit, but it's a lot. It's a lot of that. That is part, I think that is the nature, the core, in my understanding of flamenco. This is open to debate, and anyone contact me and we can talk about it at length. But in my understanding of flamenco, the very heart and the very core of flamenco is the fact that you can come together with anybody from anywhere in the world who has the same language. It's like, somebody speaks English, you can go speak English to them. Maybe their accent is different, their dialect is different, but you can understand them. So flamenco is really the same. So you can really, I could go to any country, and so could Shirley, or any performer you saw tonight, or any flamenco could meet any other flamenco and do a show. And that is the nature of tablao, right? Not necessarily, there is also, it has evolved, the Aga Khan has presented a lot of choreographed shows. I've been a part of them. It's gorgeous, it's a whole other art, and it is a different version of flamenco, right? But the core, familial community nature of flamenco is that you come together and you see what happens. And so actually, this was a perfect example of that. And I loved it. But of course, what Shirley's saying, we also have worked together, so that also contributes a lot. So we can say, hey, that verse that you sing, I love that one. Why don't you do that one when the quick, beforehand, and I'll do this. Okay, great, done. Yeah, great, let's do it.
And what's also really interesting then for me is it's I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but tablaos were originally part of Café Cantantes in Spain. So it's places where people came to encounter, came to meet, came to gather. Yeah. And so it sounds like it's also a space for sharing as well too.
Yeah, and I was going to say also an opportunity for a lot of, going back to what happened here many years ago, but opportunity for new people to kind of for example, someone like Esmeralda Enrique or Carmen Romero, they had performed in different circumstances where they were in a tablao setting to kind of gain another level of excellency, right? Mm-hmm. So it's part of your trajectory if you want to be a flamenco artist.
It's part of your training, really.
Your training, right?
Yeah.
To be in that world. So, this opportunity for people to come up and grow through that to go to the next level, to the next place. Mm-hmm. To do more of that choreographed places, as you were mentioning.
It also sounds like it's a very good vehicle for exchange too, which makes it a perfect setting for something like Guajiras.
Exactly. Flamenco has a lot of influences, and it's still growing. Paco de Lucia brought in the cajon from Peru. Jazz influences, pop influences, rock influences. It's ever changing. So
yeah, like when I mentioned with Enrique Morente, working with Sonic Youth back in the days working it, right?
Camaron, who's behind you, and
Yeah.
another big name in flamenco behind.
Huge influence there.
And so it's kind of funny. So one of the things that ended up happening, I know, this year because of COVID was last year when we did the tablao for the first time, we had it as part of this big reception out in the atrium. I remember you guys had such a crowd around you that effectively, like, it was, I couldn't barely see you, right? It was quite funny. It was spectacular. But this year was very different because we were filming in what was essentially an empty museum because we did it after hours. But we did get a chance to use different spaces in the museum, ones that we can't usually use for performance. Can you guys tell me a little bit more about what that experience was like for you, how it was? I mean, I remember the days of, it was kind of fun because it felt like we had like this night at the museum, you know, indie TV show kind of running from one spot to the other. But can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, for me, it was a dream. I love every space in that museum. And every time I go, I only ever want to perform like in every single space. That is like my dream. So we did Nuit Blanche for real. We did Nuit Blanche last year in the atrium and it was like gorgeous. It was pretty cold, but you know, it was all worth it because the space is so beautiful. This year we weren't able to because it was raining, you know, but so we had all these backup plans and all, but it doesn't matter because every single space in that museum is gorgeous and everyone sort of has a different feeling. And flamenco is a lot about emotion and different, each piece has its own feeling. So when you're in a different space, you can really like use that to help, you know, express those emotions. And I think you guys know where my favorite space was. Any guesses?
I think you guys know what my favorite space is.
I think we all have the same favorite space.
Let's save that for the end.
I wish the audience could, yeah.
Yeah, can you guys tell us what your favorite space is? Tell us what your
favorite spaces. Shirlita, what was it like for you recording different spots in the museum? Because as Tamar mentioned, yes, we got rained out one of those nights. We were going to be filming inside the courtyard space, and we were going to recreate that flamenco belly dance extravaganza that we had for Nuit Blanche in 2019. There's like, in case anybody missed it, there were actually pillars of fire.
True.
So Shirlita, what was it like for you recording in different spots around the museum?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the same thing as Tamar was saying in terms of wanting to record in every aspect. I mean, it would have been wonderful if we could have had like a week long to extend the recording and do all the corners. I feel like this was probably a beautiful opportunity to kind of get close to, and I'm not saying that it was exactly like, but they get into the mindset of, you know, some of our flamenco artists that we do love. I'm trying to say the documentary or the movie, the Flamenco.
Carlos
Flamenco. Yeah, Carlos Sora.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we did flamenco just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, flamenco.
I think that was when, if I recall correctly, when we were first doing a walkthrough back in August talking about that was like the first thing after we were walking through the different spots of the museum. Are we going to be in an exhibition space? That film in particular was like a highlight. And as a little aside, if he's watching, when I first went to Al Nasir, our videographer, and I was like, well, this is what, you know, Shirlita's thinking of doing, is to be these 5 pieces. We're being different locations in the museum. And he's such a visual person. I feel like, you know, the 3 of us, we can talk and we will invent something from the ground up. He's a very visual person, understandably, because he's a videographer and editor and cinematographer. And so he was like, well, what do you think this should look like? And I was like, it should look like this. And I showed him the film, and he's like, he was kind of looking at me, he's like, Charity, this is a film. This is a feature production. But I think we got, you know, we're not at Carlos Sora's level by any means, but we got a little bit a tiny taste of the magic. Yeah. Exactly.
Every scene featuring a different style and a different space with different people and different emotions. I think
and different lighting and different you know, so yes, I remember our conversation. That was after you know, I haven't been on any transit since all this has gone down. And I rode my bike from Little Italy up to the Aga Khan. I think it was like a total of 44 kilometers that day.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh wow.
But yeah, no, I mean, Charity, look at yourself. You're in the Carlos Saura movie right now with all that beautiful lighting.
Well,
you're still in the festival. You're still in the show.
we kind of have to make do right now these days, right? Yeah. So yeah. But anyways, thank you very much, ladies. I think we're about to
their favorite place.
Yes, and that was actually what I was going to say. I was going to say we're about to wrap up right now. So, favorite spot for recording in the museum?
The tunnel! Forever. Because I have to understand, every time Shirley and I, or even like if I'm by myself, I do it anyways. But like, I'm sure you do. Every time we walk through, we sing, and we spend as much time as we can there. It's so beautiful. So when that's just like a dream come true.
Yeah, the acoustics are gorgeous, and
yeah.
The crew did a fantastic job of lighting and staging and setting that tunnel. For those of you watching, if you have not visited, or if you have visited but you haven't had a chance to go through it yet, the tunnel they're speaking about, it comes from our parking space up into, eventually it takes you up to the lobby and entry area of the museum in the atrium. And the acoustics are gorgeous.
Out of this world.
Okay.
The world.
Okay, I think this is it for this evening. Thank you so much, both of you. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.